Hey, Secretaries, this is Matt. The other day, I put out a presentation on um, my Houston solve in theory and just, thoughts on the Houston puzzle. And it's called Houston Fly Me to the Moon. And this is going to be kind of a part two of that. Um, there was a lot of information in that first presentation, but I kind of wanted to put a little bit finer points on some of it in this presentation. So if you haven't seen that, go back and watch the first one I did, and before you watch this one, you'll understand a little bit more what I'm talking about. But anyway, so in the first one, I talked about through the wood, no line fears, and what I thought that was, and but I didn't show you so much. So I kind of wanted to do that. Was the first thing I wanted to do. So when you look at the building from that bench, you can see this from that bench that I told you that he's building these things from. These are like cats that are on the top of that building, or it kind of looks like a cat to me. So, but I'm assuming that's some type of mountain lion or whatever. But he's kind of looking through these woods, right? So if you are sitting on that bench, you can see that from there. So, but I'll show you that later on as well. So I argue that these things are not directional. Like we should not be treating them like you're walking from here to here to here to here, that he's just building these things off of what he sees that's basically around him, right? But if you have to argue in this one that there is a direction, it would be down the back end of that street, like we're looking down it now, to the, like, you know, this way, because of the way that it's written out, right? So the vapor trail that he talks about, that just, when the rocket goes up, the shuttle just kind of, let's call it shuttle, the vapor trail just kind of just veers a little bit, right? And that's what he's talking about in the story. But he's using the fountain that he sees to here to describe that in a Herman Square. So I believe there's a fountain that's like a real big fountain in there that I believe um, runs that he's using, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, if it's not that fountain, it's just something else that he can see that's a fountain. But that's what I do believe he's using. But anyway, then he talks about step across. So if that's the step across, and it is like coming from this direction, which again I don't think it is. He's just talking about stepping across to the four light to the bench that you can see right there. Yeah, that's it right there. So, but yeah, that's all that one is. So, so again to the verse portion, and this being a story, it's important to remember that this is kind of pre space shuttle, right? This was back when they basically had the tips of the rockets detached from the boosters when they got up there, right? So that's why it says small split, three winged and slight. He's just detaching himself from the booster itself that falls gently. I don't know if I said that or not. I said it's a rocket, but he's describing it as in when the rocket actually breaks apart and splits. Um, but yeah, he is using things around him to build that again. That being the light post and whatnot. So so back to here. So the uh the other thing I want to talk about is a little experiment that I did after I visited here, and I talked about it a little bit in the first video. Was this fountain, and how once you get to the moon or see yourself at the moon, it's kind of the better way to say it would be to see yourself at the moon. If John had him take a picture, I'm sorry, if he took a picture for John to paint, looking at it from both sides. And I think he did. So John had him paint it from this angle, but I also think that he had him paint it from the other angle, which would be this angle. So you have to get the angle just right. But if that fountain is here and you treat that fountain like it's the main post or column, if you will, that has the etch on the bottom of it, then all of that stuff in the back lines up. And I talked about the it being the spout and all that, but it could also be the whistle. So a lot of these fountains are the old fountains, I believe, would kind of make a whistling sound when you drank from them because either it's got like a bleed off valve for the air to come out, so it didn't just shoot sporadically shoot water. It would have a bleed off valve that would let air escape, and that could possibly be your whistle too. But I still think the main point is that he was trying to illustrate that you can't whistle unless you're back on Earth, and that's all he was doing. Okay, so now as far as like where he put it at that bench, right? So if it's on the other side of that bench because you're in the capsule, right? You're back on Earth. You're in the capsule. You've landed. Um, Now you're just looking back and you see the spout and you hear the whistle. So I'm thinking it's going to be in the middle of that bench, just on the other side and in the middle. I don't know why he would sit on the end. I mean, he could have, but I'm assuming it's just he's more in the middle, treating it like a seat in a capsule or the tip of a rocket, if you will. I don't know what you'd call it. But that's it. That's my thoughts for this one. So a fellow searcher that's local was kind enough to go get me this picture here, but it's really tough to see without the fountain there anymore. And he really couldn't get the angle right, and I just didn't want to have him there all freaking day, like picture after picture after picture, because you really do have to get it just right. So I just went home and did this little scaled it out on my kitchen table, and then pretended that I had I backed away and pretended I had a fountain about lined up where the fountain would have been scaled out. And these were my results from that. Was something that looked like that. And I think, yeah, that may be why John hated it so much, is because he had to um, draw it from two different angles, and he just didn't like doing that. And it would have been even harder too because there would have been different size trees and stuff like that to look through. But yeah, that's what I think that Byron asked him to do. And there's a reason that Byron asked him to do that too, right? Was the kind of like the little playful part of the puzzle was once you realize you're on the moon, you realize the image is the moon, and the little dot at the top is actually Earth. And I just think that's why it had to be done that way in his mind. Which it makes sense, but but that was kind of cool. And then but it's like it's really hard to believe that no one has just tried to dig on the other side of that bench. And if they have, uh, was it there and they just kept it, or did they redo the park? Who knows? I don't know. But if I had to guess, that's where he put it, was on the other side of that bench. And you would kind of really, if the jewel is a placement for where it should be, you would still really need that water fountain there or something just like it to figure out exactly where that thing would be. But since he says you just look back from treasure ground and you're in the rocket, that means you're standing on it, which means it has to be on the other side of that bench. So, but that would be my best guess. And I had a fun time with this one. Um, the one in New Orleans was like, what's the disappointing thing about these is you can't really like play them out because everything is not there that you actually need anymore. Like you really needed that fountain there to get the full, like, oh, this is exactly what I was supposed to do, right? Kind of thing, instead of having to resort to this. And uh but it was fun either way and trying to figure it out. And like I said, I think Naomi had it right. She just didn't really know why she was there. And all of these puzzles work that way. I'll give you some real quick examples. Um, so the St. Augustine one is you have to no, it doesn't matter where it's at. That's irrelevant in my mind. You just have to know who you're supposed to be, and then if you can figure that out, then you have a chance to find it. But who you're supposed to be in that one is actually Sacagawea's kid, and all you have to do is read the first 6 lines of that one too, and it tells you exactly who you are and what they're doing. Right, so try to remember here. The first chapter, written in water, that's him writing in journals going up the Missouri River, right? Near men with wind rose. Sacagawea translates to bird woman. And since you're with Windrose, that means you're her child. And and then you can look at the image and you just see the guy stranded at the top of a mountain, like you don't know what to do. And you have to put it together that way, but that's the Lewis and Clark expedition, and you had to figure them out that way. Um, the uh, the Charleston one was fun too. It works the same way. It's not tougher to figure out what you're doing, but it wasn't tough. It wasn't as hard to figure out where to go just because I had Google. But it's like little things like this. You just have to figure out the story, and then it'll be some event or person you already know, and then or should know from like the fifth grade, and then you go do it, and that's what these things are. But that's all I got for this one. You guys take care and have a good one. I'm trying to think if I missed anything. So I talked about the lions. I talked about the water. I talked about the fountain. Yeah, I think that's it. So if you put this one and part one together, you should get everything that I thought of on this puzzle, and then some maybe. But anyway, but that's all I got for this one. And you guys take care.